Welcome to Wide Real News. Thank you for tuning into our latest update on current global affairs. We invite you to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing this content. Your engagement is a significant way to help us bring impactful stories to light. Now, let's dive into today's pressing story, the political unrest in Mozambique, a nation grappling with a crisis fueled by poverty, despair, and post-election discontent. The context: a troubled post-election landscape. Mozambique has recently witnessed a wave of protests following its disputed general elections. Citizens, disillusioned by allegations of electoral fraud, have taken to the streets to demand justice. These demonstrations, initially peaceful, have quickly escalated into a nationwide crisis, exposing deep socio-economic and political fractures. The government, under President Filipe Nyusi, has dismissed the protests, branding them as acts of terrorism. This labeling has raised international concerns about human rights and freedom of expression in the Southern African nation. Roots of the unrest: poverty and inequality. At the heart of the unrest lies Mozambique's long-standing battle with poverty and economic inequality. Despite being rich in natural resources like gas and coal, much of the country's population lives in poverty. Data from the World Bank indicates that over 60% of Mozambicans live on less than $2 a day. Unemployment among the youth is alarmingly high, creating fertile ground for frustration and resentment. In Maputo, the nation's capital, the juxtaposition of sprawling luxury developments against shanty towns is stark. For many, the elections symbolized an opportunity for change, but reports of irregularities during voting have dashed those hopes, igniting anger. Allegations of electoral fraud. The controversy surrounding the election centers on accusations that the ruling party, Frelimo, Mozambique Liberation Front, manipulated the results to maintain its grip on power. Opposition parties, particularly Renamo, Mozambican National Resistance, have accused Frelimo of voter suppression, ballot tampering, and intimidation tactics. Observers from international bodies, including the African Union and the European Union, have also raised questions about the transparency of the electoral process. Reports of irregularities, such as inflated voter turnouts in certain districts, have fueled skepticism. Government's response: a heavy-handed crackdown. In response to the protest, the government has banned demonstrations and deployed security forces to quell dissent. This heavy-handed approach has drawn sharp criticism from human rights organizations. The decision to label peaceful protest as terrorism is alarming, said a representative from Amnesty International. It signals a dangerous erosion of fundamental freedoms in Mozambique. Eyewitness accounts describe scenes of violence, with police using tear gas, rubber bullets, and live ammunition against demonstrators. Activists report dozens of arrests, including prominent opposition figures and journalists. Voices from the ground. Wide Real News spoke to Mozambicans affected by the unrest. Their stories paint a harrowing picture of a nation at a crossroads. Maria, a 27-year-old university graduate in Maputo, joined the protest after losing her job in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. "We believe the elections would bring new opportunities," she said. "Instead, we see the same faces clinging to power while we struggle to eat." In Beira, one of the hardest hit cities, farmers like Joao lament the government's failure to address rural poverty. "We are forgotten," he said. "The elections meant nothing to us. Now they send soldiers to silence us when we ask for basic rights." The role of poverty and despair. Mozambique's economic struggles are deeply entrenched, exacerbated by corruption and mismanagement. Despite significant investments in natural gas projects, the benefits have yet to trickle down to ordinary citizens. The gap between the wealthy elite and the impoverished majority continues to widen, fueling resentment. Many protesters see the government as out of touch with their daily struggles. International reactions. The international community has expressed mixed reactions to Mozambique's political crisis. The United Nations has called for calm and urged the government to respect citizens' rights to peaceful protest. Meanwhile, regional bodies like the Southern African Development Community, SADC, have taken a more cautious stance, calling for dialogue between the government and opposition. Western nations, including the United States and the European Union, have expressed concern over the crackdown, with some threatening to impose sanctions if human rights violations persist. Path forward: dialogue or division? As Mozambique grapples with its deepest crisis in years, the path forward remains uncertain. Political analysts emphasize the need for dialogue to address grievances and restore trust in democratic institutions. However, achieving meaningful dialogue will require concessions from both sides. The government must acknowledge the legitimacy of citizens' concerns and ensure accountability for alleged electoral fraud. Similarly, opposition leaders must commit to peaceful engagement rather than inciting further unrest. Conclusion: a defining moment for Mozambique. Mozambique stands at a defining moment in its history. The current unrest highlights the urgent need for comprehensive reforms to address poverty, inequality, and governance challenges. Wide Real News will continue to monitor developments in Mozambique, bringing you accurate and timely updates. Call to action. We hope this article has provided valuable insights into Mozambique's political crisis. Please consider supporting Wide Real News by subscribing, liking, and sharing this content. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard.